discussion group beta. The scenario is you just find out that the face-to-face course you're teaching will be offered via synchronous video conferencing to a distance cohort of students at an international location. There are three questions that accompany this scenario, and I will address them as we go through the presentation. The first is, what factors should you consider to adjust your teaching to this modality? While there are a myriad of factors that you must consider, I will address four in this presentation. First is the initial contact with the student. Secondly, the potential for read-ahead packets. Third, transparency. And fourth, interaction. Initial contact. Here in the United States, the initial contact that we have with an instructor or a professor of a course that we sign up for is generally done via the syllabus. However, in this situation, not knowing the level of comfortability that the international students may have, I would make it a little bit more informal. So what I would do is I would send a letter or an email introducing myself, more than likely an email, because sending a letter to an international location can be a challenge. So I would send an email introducing myself and giving the students a little bit about my background, and in return ask them to respond, introducing themselves and telling me a little bit about their background. I would also outline the course requirements. And again, this is generally done via the syllabus, but in this case, I would give a general overview of the course requirements, followed up by the official syllabus. I would introduce them to the video conferencing medium that we're going to use, along with a brief tutorial on how to use it and identify its capabilities and its limitations. The read-ahead packets. In this case, I would email notes, handouts, PowerPoint presentations, or whatever other materials that I could email to the students ahead of time. And what that would do is give them time to ensure that they can read over it and get an understanding of the material before we actually cover it in class. This could potentially limit the number of question disruptions that may happen by their lack of understanding the material had it just been presented on the spot like it would generally be done with local students. Transparency. When I speak of transparency, I'm talking about being transparent as if it's your first time actually teaching a video class or a class video via video conferencing, or the first time using this particular type of audio, video, or teleconferencing equipment, or video conferencing equipment. So I would let the students know, listen, there's going to be a learning curve on both fronts, and we're going to get through this and kind of learn this together. And then interaction. Interaction with the distant students is vital. I think it's very important to interact with them just as much as it is to interact with the local students. Your interaction and providing a feedback can make them feel as they are truly part of the class and reduce that feeling of being isolated. And in addition, I would give them a contact means to get in touch with me outside of classroom hours, which would generally be an email. The second question is, what are some possible challenges you will face when teaching two groups of students, local and distant, at the same time? While here you have time zone differences, of course, when you're talking international. So it's either going to be daylight here, nighttime there, or vice versa. So when you're prepping to prepare for, or when you're preparing for a class like this, you have to take into account the time zone differences. Secondly, your visual display aids. How will you effectively display those aids to your international students? And that'll all be dependent upon the medium in which you choose, but that in itself can be a challenge. Third, you don't know what their learning conditions are. They may not have the ideal learning conditions that the local students have. Their learning conditions could be better. It's just something that's unknown at the time. So those are some of the that's one of the challenges you also face when preparing to teach a course with local and distant students via a video conferencing medium. And of course, when you're dealing with any type of technology, you're going to have potential technical issues. What is a power outage, equipment failure, um, loss of internet connectivity? I mean, there's a myriad of things we can go through when we talk about technical difficulties. So that is definitely one of the bigger challenges. And one that I didn't identify in the slides is the language barrier. You know, you don't know what their understanding of the English language are. You don't know what their mastery of the English language is. So there may be a language barrier here to their understanding the material that's being taught. And do you have a distance classroom facilitator to address those issues if there is a language barrier, to provide guidance and assistance to those students if they need it, and just to make sure that the overall class is running like it should and students are doing what they should be doing in class? The final question is synchronous video conferencing the best approach to designing this instructional situation, or do you have recommendations on how this should work? I don't know if synchronous video conferencing is the best approach. I think synchronous web conferencing tools such as Blackboard Collaborate may work a little bit better because Blackboard Collaborate and other web conferencing tools like it allow students to dynamically interact with one another. You can use text messages, you can use two-way voice, whiteboards that enable collaboration between the students. You can share desktop applications, you can upload presentations. So there's quite a few things you can do with a web conferencing tool. So to me, I think that would be a better scenario or a better medium to use as opposed to just video conferencing. But the bottom line is when you're teaching a course in this manner where you have students internationally and students locally, there are going to be challenges and there are going to be considerations that have to be taken into account. And essentially, all you can do is the best job with the equipment that you have.